You're listening to The Observing Eye. Pirate radio for the mind. Coming at you fresh from the computer hell cabin.
Hello, you beautiful lot. It's Friday the 19th of May, 2023. And do you know what that means? No, it is not Chico time. It is time for the Observing Eye. And, as always, let's begin by taking a brief moment to reflect upon the good things that have happened to us this past week. And now, a moment for the not so good. As always, thank you for joining me. This episode, I shall be discussing the idea of Stoicism and the dichotomy of control. It's a little something I've been reading about in more detail lately and thought it would be prescient to share with you, as it may be something that you'll find useful as well. In case you've not come across it already, which is fair, Stoicism is a very old philosophy. Started off by the Romans when they were flapping about wearing togas rather than riding vespers and shouting at each other in the streets. Stoicism is a very self-development-centric philosophy. There's a lot of accountability and responsibility on the self, where we look at our own perspectives and our own behaviors, and we do what we can to try and improve those through reflection so that we can be a better human being and a better functioning member of a collective society, essentially. So one central idea within Stoicism, is called the Dichotomy of Control. Now, this was an idea proposed by the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, and he divides the world into two categories: things that we can control and things that we can't. Now, you'll probably have heard me talk about this before in some length, but of course, the only things that we truly have any control over are our own thoughts, our own beliefs, and our own reactions. Essentially, our internal world is the only thing that is entirely within our control. Nothing else in this universe you can control but yourself. On the other hand, the things that we can't control include pretty much everything outside of our own mind. Other people's actions, the weather, the past, the future, whether they've run out of Brussels sprouts in Tesco's or not, all of it, all of these external things lie essentially beyond the reach of our control. Understanding this idea is the first step to changing your outlook on what happens to you in life. Our outlook, which you might want to refer to as perspective, I'm going to call it perspective here. So our perspective essentially determines, our perspective of events essentially determines how much we suffer. Now, I know you're probably thinking that sounds crazy. If I stub my toe on that really badly placed coffee table in the hallway, my perspective of stubbing my toe is that, I've hit my toe and it fucking hurts. So, I'm suffering because of it. So, yeah, that is suffering in the moment. That's physical pain that we're experiencing. When I talk about perspective in terms of suffering, I'm referring to how we relate to things that are going on for us in life. It's fundamentally not the events themselves that disturb us. It's our judgment and perception concerning those events. So our perspective, our way that we interpret and react to situations, that largely determines our emotional response to that situation. So if we believe something is really shit and terrible and unpleasant, we're very likely going to feel upset or frustrated or angry or afraid in that scenario. But if we change our perspective and we see the event as a learning opportunity, or we look at it as something that is outside of our control, so why are we stressing about it? Our reaction to the event can become a lot more balanced and a lot more controlled, a lot more, pragmatic as we observe it, as we experience it. So let's give you an example, right? So I used to get the train to work. I used to commute in from where I live in the jungles of Essex back into London, into central London. And I would get the train every day. And it was god awful, actually, thinking about it. I'm glad I don't do it anymore. But getting, like, let's say, for example, I'm getting on the train, right? I've got a meeting at 9 a.m. I mean, who puts meetings in at 9 a.m.? But some people do. I'm looking at you people. I see you. So there's a meeting at 9 a.m. and we get the train, we leave, we get up early, we get showered, we get ready for work, we have a good breakfast, we're prepped, we're good to go, we've done all of our groundwork the night before, we're like, yes, I've got this is in the fucking bag. We get on the train pulls into the station, we get on, bang on time. Halfway into work, the train breaks down and we are stuck. And we're going to miss the meeting. We know we're going to miss that meeting. There's no way that we can just jump out and run down the tracks like a madman. Or those old Western films with the pulley carts, the big levers, chugging along through Barking on our giant levered pulley cart thing, whatever the hell they're called. No, they're not available either. So we are stuck inside this air-conditioned cabin, people sweating and becoming anxious and quietly ignoring each other. So we have two options here. We probably have a multitude of options, but the two options I'm going to focus on are we can become frustrated and angry and pissed off that this train has broken down and we can't make it to the meeting. We can get really, really angry about this thing that we cannot control. Or we can accept that we have no control over the fact that this train has broken down and make best use of this moment of time that we have. So yes, our boss might get angry about it. Our clients that we're supposed to meet might be a bit pissed off. But if we can't do anything about it, we can't physically change what's happening. We can't, through sheer force of will, manifest the train to start working. The universe doesn't work like that. What we can do is go, okay, so I'm here. This is happening right now. Take a moment and just embrace that. You can't change it. Don't stress about it. Now, like all things that I tend to discuss on this podcast, this idea of changing our outlook is far easier said than done. But I'm going to do my best to give you a few ideas and things that you can think about and tools that you can use to help you on this journey to changing your perspective around things that you cannot control. So the first thing is mindfulness. Oh, that word mindfulness. Yeah, I'm not talking about just sitting cross-legged under a tree and being very aware of the present moment. The idea of mindfulness is that we become aware of our thoughts and our feelings and we observe them without judgment. So this is where meditation comes in really handy. I talk about meditation a lot because it's a big component of what I do personally. And I find it really beneficial, really useful. Meditation is a fantastic tool to reflect upon what's going on with us internally and to garner some self-awareness around what's happening internally. Meditation allows us to step outside of the maelstrom of thought and emotion that the ego creates and to observe that stuff, kind of like a disconnected observer, a disconnected watcher looking at what's happening with the ego, with the emotions and going, yeah, okay, I'm feeling this. I recognize that I'm feeling this way or I'm experiencing this. and I'm just going to observe the experience instead of becoming a part of the experience. We become more of an audience than the actor in this case. So mindfulness is good at spotting when our perspectives are leading towards unnecessary suffering. And it enables us, through being aware that we're doing it, to work on changing how our perspective is around that suffering. So secondly, accept what you cannot control. Acceptance is a fundamental principle in Stoicism. So instead of resisting or lamenting over things that we can't control, we need to accept that this is what they are. This is how the universe is. And we are nay grandiose enough to be able to affect change in that way. It's not easy. But like all things, if we practice it, then it becomes easy. It becomes like a second nature. It's just getting over the initial inertia, the initial uncertainty. We're stepping into new territory with this stuff, a lot of us. And it's unsettling and it's different. And it takes a little time to get used to thinking in a certain way. Because, if we're 40, 50, 60 years old and we've been thinking the same way for our entire life, those thought patterns, they're hardwired. They are etched in stone. So changing that takes time. Unraveling that way of thinking takes time. So just, if you're going to try this, exercise a bit of self-compassion. Self-compassion again. Yeah, I'll talk about that a lot as well. But again, it's important, self-compassion, to, just be kind to yourself and give yourself time, be patient. Change is not instant. Third thing is to challenge your thoughts, a little bit of critical thinking, a little bit of Socratic questioning. Do our thoughts line up with what is actually happening? Let's look at facts. Let's observe the realness of what is going on and question whether our thoughts are an appropriate response to the fact of what is happening to us. We need to question our beliefs, question our judgments, those judgments that cause us suffering. And we have to ask ourselves if they're based on an assumption or not. And we have to ask ourselves whether they're within our control. And the last thing is to embrace adversity. So we need to see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Getting out of our comfort zone, being uncomfortable, is the space where we grow as individuals most rapidly. Marcus Aurelius, very famous Stoic philosopher, said that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Now that, my dears, is all I have to say on the subject of the dichotomy of control. If you're interested in getting into it in a bit more depth, I would highly recommend an author called Ryan Holiday. He's written a couple of books, one of which being called The Obstacle is the Way. And I've probably mentioned this in a previous podcast, I forget. It's a very accessible book on the ideas of Stoicism. If you're really like academic and want to dive into some proper old literature, you can grab a copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations or some essays by Epictetus. Go and have a little dig around. Aurelius and Epictetus are two big sort of thinkers in the old Stoic philosophy. So go and see what you can find on those. I'm not going to delve into it too much because that would be another like hour of me rambling on. I'm sure none of us want that. So yeah, think about that. Think about what's inside your control and what's outside your control. Little hint there, shouldn't be much thinking. Everything is outside of your control aside from you. And yeah, consider your perspective. Are your perspectives leading you towards a path of suffering, essentially? And if they are, what can you do to amend those and how can you change it? Wishing you all a fabulous weekend. Go out there and recognize that you have no control over this universe whatsoever. It's a daunting experience, but you'll get there, you know. It's actually quite empowering when we recognize that all we have control over is ourselves. Instead of expending all of that energy trying to manipulate things that we physically cannot change, we can focus that energy on trying to change the thing that we can, which is us and our outlook and our perspective and our way of thinking. Deeply empowering and a lot less stressful. Have a wonderful one, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to The Observing Eye. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope that you found it useful. And if you're interested in any more of my writings or work around psychology and philosophy and general day-to-day living, please go and take a look at my Substack, which is theobservingeye.substack.com, and that's I as in the letter, not I as in the gelatinous organ through which you see. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll see you soon.